Hi, welcome to today's episode of ParentPulse. Today's topic, of course, is the month of love. So, what else are we going to talk about other than love? So, the topic is love languages, but not in the context of parents or adults. It's all about the kids. We're talking about love languages with respect to our children. So, the question is, do you know your children's love languages, or do kids even have love languages at all? So that's what the topic is about, and I'm bringing to you an expert. Her name is Sade. She's a psychotherapist, she's a counselor, she's a mentor, she's a trainer. She is fabulous. So welcome, Sade. Hi, Sade.
Hi, Bankhair.
Welcome to episode 3 of ParentPulse. I don't know, for some reason this one is exciting to me because we're talking about love. I don't know, because me, I'm a sucker for love. So it's interesting, and I thought that this episode we should bring an expert. We don't want to Some episodes we bring parents to talk. Sometimes we need to hear from those that can really help us from the perspective of a subject matter expert, which is why you're here today. So I'm going to give you very few seconds to introduce yourself. I don't think I did an amazing job, so maybe I can give you some minutes to just talk about yourself and what you do.
Hey, well, thank you for having me. It is a brilliant topic, and I'm sure the reason you spoke to me is because I do love talking about love as well. And well, I'm Sade. Sade Solarin. My practice is called Simisara, and I'm here in the UK. I am a psychotherapist. That's what I am. I'm a trainer. I'm a well-being consultant, and I'm a coach. And I support mainly adults, but because my training is wide, so I have studied child development, parenting, and I guess adult relationship patterns and adult relationship dynamics as well. So I'm very happy to be here.
I'm very happy too. So before today, this topic in particular, do you know your children's love language? I've been thinking about it. Like, do I know my children's love language? And I'm like, okay, there's words of affirmation, there's gifts. Which one is it? And I got confused. Is it that I don't know them well enough to know their love language? So if there's something I'm missing. So maybe let's start from you telling us about, maybe giving us some ideas of love languages with respect to children.
Yeah, that's all right. And the thing is, I think one thing we first have to have in mind is love languages was written from when Dr. Gary Chapman was writing love languages, he had adults in mind. But we know from working with children, being parents, having nieces and nephews, that we can recognize those love languages in children. The thing I might say is, the reason we're recognizing them in children is because we're recognizing them in ourselves. We're recognizing what we're comfortable with.
Okay.
So when you think about love languages, so as you were reading out, there are 5 of them. There is words of affirmation, there's physical touch, there's receiving gifts, there's quality time, and I think there is acts of service.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I guess we can sort of capture love in. And I think that's a little bit of an intro in love languages. And when you study love languages, then you can see from adults that yes, we lean to one love language or the other. Now, when we're talking about children, from in my experience and what I think, my own experience and what I've studied, children speak all languages, all the love languages. But love languages, if you look at it from the perspective of needs, what are our emotional needs? Okay, that's what love languages are. What are our emotional, psychological needs?
Aren't they too young, though, to have? I'm just wondering, at what age do kids start to need something emotionally? Because if I put myself in, when I was growing up, of course I'm a Nigerian, my parents wouldn't tell me, "Oh, I love you." Like, come on, like that's not something that we're used to hearing. But they will move heaven and earth. That's acts of service, right? And then, as I grew up, I realized that it's not that they don't love you, because if they could do all of this, then it means they love you. But I then found that as I was growing up, I began to yearn for that words of affirmation. So I'm just wondering, is that something that is unique to myself, or is that something general? Is that what love language is? Is that what it is? Like something that you don't have in childhood, you start to look for it even when you are an adult. Is that what that is really?
Well, you have hit the nail on the head there. There's something you said that, first of all, your first question was, do children actually have those emotional needs? You recognize that your parents would do these things for you. And then as you grew up, you realized there were some things you were lacking. Well, if you didn't have needs, you would not be lacking anything. You would just have whatever it is they gave you, and you'd just be happy with it. But I'll challenge you on something. When a baby is born, what language, if you can think about all the love languages, what do we give the baby?
Milk.
Okay. When you think in terms of love languages, because when a baby is born,
it would be an act of service, because you lose your entire life to that child. You are serving that baby every day.
Right. Exactly that. The moment a baby is born, everybody's looking at them and, oh, you're so beautiful, you're lovely, you're amazing, oh, I love you so much, oh, I thank God for you, whatever. That's words of affirmation. You're cuddling the baby constantly when the baby is crying. That's touch. Acts of service, like you said, your whole life ends because you're looking after the baby. You're up all night sitting with this baby, trying to get them to sleep, trying to get them to be okay. That's your quality time. And what else was there? Gifts. You go broke when you have a baby.
Oh, absolutely. Like everything, especially if it's your firstborn.
Right.
The account.
Now, so look at what happened there. You give birth to a child, and children are born with emotional needs. From the moment they come out, what do? They start to scream, because they're like, well, where I'm coming from, all my needs were met.
Yes.
I wasn't sad. I wasn't upset. Now I'm out and cold. There's so much light. There's so much noise. What's going on here? And instinctively, all of us, we start to respond to the baby's needs. Those are the baby's emotional needs. Then what then happens along the way?
You start to drop some.
You start to drop some.
Oh goodness. Okay.
You start to drop some. And then, because of maybe the society we grew up in, the one that we hold on to is the acts of service, or even the gifts. It's a very survivalist society where if I can provide everything I can for you, then you can see that I'm loving you.
Correct. Yeah.
And if I can give you this, I'm giving you this present, you can see I'm loving you. Also, the problem is the way we were brought up, that's the language you then learned how to speak, and then you speak that to your child. And then you say, I'm just going to give you. Whereas your baby's still like a child, the growing child is thinking, where is that praise that you used to give me, that I need? Where is that touch that I need? Where is just sitting with me and let's watch Peppa Pig together?
Oh my goodness. Can we play games? And you're like,
right. And you're like, I've got things to do.
Thank you. Yes. And I've never thought about it this way. Like this is that moment where you say, aha. So kids they come out, they have their needs, and you probably give it to them all the time. Then as things happen, as the kids grow up, you begin to drop. And you feel that they don't need it anymore. And you start to drop. So looking at these love languages and our kids in today's world, are there are 5 of them? Are they equal? Are there ones that once you take out can really affect the child when they grow? Because if I'm giving my child gifts and I withdraw those gifts, is that child likely to turn out to be something else in the future? I don't think so. So I'm just wondering, in terms of the balance of the different languages, are there ones that as parents we need to be mindful that we don't take out so that it doesn't affect them when they grow up?
Well, in my own, I guess this is my own opinion, isn't it? Because there is no scientific research around that to see if there's one that's better than the other. But here's the thing. There is no child that's the same. Every child is different. So what one child considers important is totally different from what another child considers important. There is also the misconception that love languages develop from what we take away from them. Like we said, everybody is different. Every child is different. Just like if there's a baby sitting down here and you clap in front of the baby, some babies will like excited and happy. Do that again. So some babies, if you do this to them,
they'll scream and cry.
Scream. And some of them will freeze, like, what is going on here? But you haven't done anything different, you just clap. In the same way, so if you think about, let's say receiving gifts, for example, as a love language. There's some kids, maybe they didn't receive any gifts at all. And so when they grew up, that's all they need. It's a deficit for them, and that's all they need. But then there's some children, the only way their parents showed them they loved them was giving them presents and gifts. So when they grow up, that's all they know. That's all the love that I need. So you see the same love language, two children, and they act differently. Now, there isn't any one. What is it? If you imagine, and I always revert back to childhood, since we're talking about children, what things can you take away out of all the 5 love languages from a baby, from an infant, that would be okay? If you think about it, whichever one.
From a baby? Maybe gifts, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, and that's because we think, okay, gifts is like big things. There is absolutely nothing you can take away from a baby that will be okay. Why? Because even those gifts, we're thinking about it like a present, a box of chocolate.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Gifts could be,
could be anything. It's whatever it is that child needs that is a physical object that you're giving to the child. So, in other words, in my own opinion and my own experience, I don't think there is any love language that's better than the other. What makes the difference is what that child feels is a deficit for them, or what makes them feel loved. And also, it also depends on the parent. If all the parent was giving them to show love is, let's say, acts of service. Because imagine our moms, they're very good at making sure they're cooking for you, cleaning for you, doing all those things. It might be that child feels like, that doesn't bring anything to me. What I want is cuddle. What I want is kisses and cuddle. Now,
well, how do you bridge the gap? Because do you ask your kids, like, I don't know, like, do you then sit down? How do you know what they yearn for? Don't get me wrong. I think sometimes we know, because like my daughter, she tells me I love you 50 times a day, and I'm like, you told me 20 times already, right? So clearly for her, hearing you tell her I love you continuously is that thing for her. Like, just keep telling me I love you, I love you, I love you. So I'm just wondering, like, for those of us that are thinking, what do they really need? How do you investigate it? Like, do you sit down and talk to them to say, tell me what you need? Or like, how do you even know?
That's a fantastic one. When you say, what is it you need? Because that's quality time already you're already giving them. The fact that you can sit with them and let them feel heard. But one good thing that your daughter is doing is giving you the clues. She's giving you the cheat sheet. She's saying to you, okay, I'm getting everything else, but where is my words of affirmation?
Okay.
And then she keeps saying it. She keeps saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. And you're like, leave me alone, I love you. Stop harassing me about it.
And you know what? And it's so interesting. But I'm thinking that the reason I'm not saying it 50 times a day is because my mommy and my daddy didn't tell me I love you. I'm not even sure I've heard. The funny thing is, now they're older. They tell their grandkids, I love you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, tell me, why was it so difficult for our own parents to express love verbally? Like, what happened there?
Well, like we always say, we don't know what's going on in every family, but I guess the reason you're asking is because it's very common. Our parents
Very
saying,
common.
I love you, right? But
Yeah.
that's because, you know what we said initially, they're growing up in a survivalist environment. In an environment where is I love you going to feed you? If it's not, I'm going to shed that. You know?
Okay.
Is me sitting with you watching TV going to feed you? I don't think so. Right? So it's not as though they didn't love you. It's because at that time it was not important. They didn't see it as important. They did the important things. Why are they doing it for your kids now? They're not trying to survive to raise your kids.
It's true. They finished, so they have time on their hands.
They have time on their hands, and the survival of your kids it's not dependent on them. Their own fight or flight responses are not heightened when they're around your kids. So to them, it's just like, oh, I'll just give these kids whatever it is they want. Is it I love you? Is it hanging out? I bet grandparents, they can sit there and watch everything forever with the kids.
You are right. You are absolutely right. Because I'm thinking, why do grandparents find it easier to connect with their grandchildren than with their kids? And it's not just Nigerian. You see it in the Chinese environment. You see it in the Indian environment. It's something, even in the European environment, grandparents are a big thing in their grandchildren's lives in a way that parents are too busy. They're too busy to just be present. So in my head, as I begin to reflect on these love languages and, just knowing how I've been socialized in an environment where maybe our parents didn't have enough time to, do all those mushy stuff. Now, we then try, and I do find that some parents do now try to overcompensate by, spoiling their kids, right? To say, I didn't have this when I was growing up.
Right.
I'm going to go all out, right? So that's another thing that I do find. There's an overexpression of certain languages that you my father didn't do this, so I must do it for my my mom didn't do this, so I must do it for my. So that's another thing that people see these days as well.
Right. Well, if you look at that, that means that person is trying to resolve their own language through their child, as opposed to listen to what that child needs. Because if you are saying that, oh, well, my dad didn't do all this to me and I'm going to pour it all on you, well, whose childhood are you fixing? That means it's your childhood, the man's childhood or the woman's childhood they're fixing. Because if they were actually trying to pay attention to their children, they'll be listening to what their children want. The book itself, the love language book itself, I think it gave an example one time about, let's say, a couple, husband and wife, maybe I read it from somewhere else, where the woman felt as though my husband doesn't love me, and he never spends any time with me, never does anything with me. And the husband's like, what do you mean? Of course I love you. That's why I go to work, 20 hours a day. I provide for you. I buy all these things for you. So he is thinking that this is what love is. And that's the thing about language. If you're speaking one language and your child is speaking another language or is expressing a different need, the communication is broken down. So it's not about spoiling. People think, I'm going to dump lots of this particular love language on you. When really what your kids just need is a sprinkling of everything, an equal.
A sprinkling of everything.
So that there's none that's missing. So when they grow up, they're not trying to dump that on their children. They're not trying to say, oh, I need this from my own partner.
Thank you. You just hit something I was going to say. So you're saying dump on children. Right. But I do find that it's not the kids sometimes that get the dump. It's also the partners.
Yes, of
right?
course.
Because we then come with baggage.
Yes.
And we expect our partners to fill them. Oh, I didn't get gifts when I was growing up. Or I even got so much gifts when I was growing up. And then you end up with someone that his own is to, DIY, screw the, clean the house. There's no special gifts there. You're like, what's going on? So I looked at all the love languages and I thought to myself, which of these love languages is likely to show up and affect the kids. And there's one I found.
Okay.
In this day and age, I felt self-confidence is something that is very, 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 it's almost like the prerequisite to make, to get ahead in life these days. Like, you have to be confident, you want to get a job, you have to be able to speak, you have to be vocal, you have to show up, and you have to be present. There's no time for, not being able to talk. And now, if you grew up and you lacked words of affirmation, and for me, I feel words of affirmation, I know even though you say it's a sprinkle of everything, I feel like words of affirmation might be the most powerful that could be counterproductive in a child's developmental life. A child wants her parents' approval, but you never give it because you feel, that child should be doing better. So of course, for example, me, I'm a teacher's daughter. Of course, I must score 100 over 100.
Right.
So when I bring 90% home, 90. You can imagine that. So there's some things that parents' expectations that they have, if not met, then they don't give you those words, right? And I wondered that how does that impact? Because the child then keeps going up, looking for, just someone to rubber stamp and say something positive to them. They go to work, your boss doesn't give you that word of affirmation. You make a presentation, they don't say it was excellent, you feel depressed about it. You get married, your husband doesn't say you look beautiful in the morning, you feel bad. Like, this words of affirmation touches on different aspects of your life, whether it's friendship, you're in a friendship circle, whether it's work, so I'm just wondering, my own opinion though, that words of affirmation is actually a very powerful one that as parents, maybe we should give it a second look. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you, but I agree with you because that's your experience.
Oh goodness, are you sure?
No, that's not bad. No, it's not. That's not a bad thing. What I mean is this: that is how you have understood it and your experience. Why? Because in somebody else in a totally different culture, whoever says, there's some kids. I remember when X Factor. Do you remember X Factor? When someone would come to the stage and then start singing, totally off tune, and then Simon Cowell will ask, why are you here? So my mom said I could sing. My mom said I'm the best singer ever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, in other words, you could be giving words of affirmation ever since that child was a child. That doesn't mean that child will be successful in everything. It's a very, very strong love language, yes. And we need it everywhere. But I guess it depends on, and that's the thing about us adults, because we look at things through the lens of our own eyes.
Our own experiences.
Right, our own experiences. And so
are you telling me that words of affirmation is not linked to a child developing self-confidence? Because for me, I've always thought there was a direct line of correlation. Children believe in themselves because they've been told that they will do great. I'm not saying that they're kids that, there are people that have been bashed. Oh, you can never succeed, and they will still succeed.
Right.
But I'm just saying, is there a direct correlation somewhere between words of affirmation?
So yes, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying there isn't a direct link. But I'm saying that experience when the child grows up is just one small part of their life, though.
Okay.
Have that in mind. And what I'll put to you is, if we put together a different love language of something like quality time. Quality time is one love language, I guess, that I can link directly to being, the ability to be in the presence of another and be fully and totally accepted without having to do anything.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I would have thought that was words of affirmation.
The words of affirmation is affirming the things that you've done or that you're good at. In other words, words of affirmation, for example, I can say to a child, you're doing so well. Your hair is so beautiful. In other words, words that, yes, build the confidence and they're affirming. However, it's quite conditional. I have to pick something to affirm.
Okay.
Quality time, however, is a being, I guess, language. In other words, I can be with you, whether I'm doing well at school or not, whether I look nice or not, whether I'm dirty or not, I can sit with you and you're just fully accepted. So I'm not saying that words of affirmation doesn't go well, but I'm saying that works in some circumstances. But those circumstances, and they don't work in isolation. So somebody who's been praised constantly in their lives might go into the workplace and have very good self-confidence. Well, does that... Yeah, were you going to say something else?
I was going to say yes. They can also have a false sense of I'm the best, even though they might not be the best.
Absolutely that. They might have a false sense, because if you don't pair it with the other one, with being able to just be with people and accept people as they are, spend that time, does it mean people have to keep performing around them for them to be able to find something to affirm?
To affirm, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So words of affirmation is conditional on you doing something.
Yeah.
So it still relies on you bringing something to affirm. But okay, I see.
But here's the thing. It doesn't mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. It doesn't mean that is gospel and that is right. I guess I'm just weighing that up with the other love languages. And which is why I'm saying every single love language works. But it's possible that the reason why you are very connected to the words of affirmation, maybe, and you might be able to say more about this, maybe in your childhood, you've really seen the impact of what being affirmed does. You've really seen the impact of what those words of affirmation did, how far it took you, how you can go into a place with confidence.
Oh, absolutely. I have. I've always felt that, the positive words that parents say to their kids, because, are you kidding? The world is so brutal. There are people everywhere ready to tell you that you can't do anything. And I feel like, when in this world, we don't need to, in spite of everyone saying different things, you can't do this, you can't do this, there must be people that are there to encourage you, to tell you that you can be it. Yeah. Right? So we don't want to be the ones telling our kids, oh, you can't amount to anything. Oh, you that you're always doing nonsense. Oh, you, because there are people out there ready to tell them that. Yeah. So it almost feels as though, it behoves on the parents to just keep sowing positive words into our kids' lives so that, they believe in themselves. I took your point that, it's not just about the positive words, because, saying those words, you're never present, you're never sharing quality time. And, when you said that thing about quality time is it, I 100% agree. It's the quality time that actually, when you grow, you keep in your memory, because you keep saying, oh, I remember when I was small, my dad used to do this with me. Yeah. My mom, on Saturday mornings, we used to listen to Sonia Day together. There's so many things that, you deposit in our child's lives that 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line, the kids carry forward and they reflect on it. And they're thinking, how can I replicate the same with my parents, with my children, just trying to find your own culture as well, to say, what can I do with my kids that they would remember in another 30, 40, 50 years? So you're right. Quality time is it as well. Yeah.
But also, just to add something there with the words of affirmation, words of affirmation is words of affirmation is one of those languages that is really free. Maybe that's the thing. It's free. That your parent doesn't have to have tons of time, tons of money
to get it.
They don't have to have anything.
They just
to be able to affirm a child. So maybe that's another reason why it's so important.
Yes, that's another thing. The other thing as well is is free. I never thought about quality time requires that you have time. You have to spend time. Right. Words, gifts, you have to have, acts of service too requires time. Words of affirmation just requires you opening your mouth and saying something.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So just talking about, I think we're just almost done. Okay. In the last bit, if you want to talk about practical steps that parents can take to nurture their children's languages, I know that what I'm expecting to hear is a sprinkle of everything. So, like, what are the practical steps? And thankfully, we're in the new generation, so we don't have pride. We can tell our children, "Oh, I love you." We can say it without feeling bad, or like, in the old generation, I feel like if they had to say it, like,
so heavy.
It was so heavy. I love. Okay, so maybe you can share some practical steps.
Yeah, I think with children, one thing good and bad about children, when we're not bad, is they are very vocal. They tell you what they need. Children tell you what they need, especially when you're trying your best as a good parent. If there is something missing, your child will tell you. Especially if you're open with your children. It's not those kind of parents where your child is always afraid of you and disappears into the bedroom the moment you come in. If you have a good relationship with your child, like I have children and I have one child that maybe might be a bit more cuddly, like, "Oh, what are you doing?" and then wants to cuddle up. And I'm like, okay, so that means this child is obviously needing some physical touch now. Now that is the time for me to not be thinking about my own love language, like, I don't want to be touched. It's thinking about this child has a need right now, and trying to work my way through that and just giving the child what the child needs. And it might be that, "Mom, let's watch Peppa Pig together," or "Let's watch whatever together." And you're like, "Okay, put it on." And then you listen and you sit there and watch and laugh when everyone laughs along. Just to give the child, the thing is, there's a tendency to feel like we have to change ourselves completely. I don't think we need to change ourselves completely in order to meet the child's needs. What we need to do is listen. Listen with our ears, our eyes. Listen to what your child needs. It's not that hard, honestly, when you think about it. But you might be able to say more in your experience. It's not that hard to hear what your child needs.
It's not. It's not. And I think it also depends on the age. I think at some age they are open.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when they get into another level, they start to, keep quiet, like, "Oh, I can't be bothered." So that's another thing. I know no matter how old you are, when you have children, they're still your children. But let's talk about those parents that don't, that are typical parents, not typical parents, apologies, parents that they don't ask questions. They find it difficult to connect with their kids because everything is hard. Like, what advice would you give to a parent that has parented in the hard way? Like,
right. You know what? And without trying to stereotype in genders, but one thing is, if we're speaking, let's say a mom, for example, one thing a mom you can always say to yourself is, "Come on, this kid lived in me for that long." Even if it's just to remind yourself that you've done this before, you have met all your child needs before. Even with dad, knowing that when that child just showed up, you were able to meet those needs. So it's giving yourself that space and that time to maybe just settle. Sometimes when our kids ask for something that we can't give them emotionally, we panic. If a child says, "Oh, you never told me you love me, you never tell you love me," the first thing is panic. How do I answer that? How do I deal with that? I love you. I show you everything I want. Blah, blah, blah.
Sometimes you get defensive.
You get defensive, and you start to list out all the things you've done for your child.
Yeah.
Right. It's to relax. It's to, when you get to that, there's that fight or flight mode in your mind because your little one has asked you something, is to just take some time out and relax. Say, "Hey, this thing that this child is asking me, they're not asking me because they want to hurt me. They're asking me because they have a need."
You have a need, yeah.
That's all it is. They have a need. And see how best, and there's no perfect parent. We're going to miss it sometime. That's the thing, we're going to miss it. So see what it's like. So even just practice it a little bit. But by going by what your child asks for, obviously there are things we need to do. You need to provide for your children. You need to do those things. What if a child comes and says, Daddy, I love you, or Mommy, I love you, and you're like, okay, this is a cringe moment, But it's recognizing that, okay, this is a cringe moment, but just wondering, what is it like to just say that right back, just in that moment, without allowing the anxiety to take over. Okay, I love you too. Even if it's just that, I love you too. You give an example of your little one who keeps saying it a million times.
Yeah.
The reason why a child says it a million times is because they haven't heard it back.
That's not true. Well,
okay, you tell me. Go ahead.
You're right. Because she would say, I love you. I said, okay, I love you too. And she would say, oh, Mom, I love you. I'm like, I love you too. Then she would say, I love you. And I mute. She said, I love you, Mom. I said, but I answered you already.
I answered you. It's like a test.
So, I feel like she's really taking the piss. Like, she's really trying to, she knows that this thing is going to get this woman, and then she just keeps saying it. She keeps saying it. But, it's interesting. You're right. Some kids, they have everything, but they're just needing one more thing. And as a parent, you understand your love language through your own experience. And you're like, why are you? But I get it. Like, but I get it. Like, just being there to provide them what they need, especially if it's a need, because when needs are unmet, that's another story. And if you're lucky enough to identify that your kid has a need, then you are best be able to, as long as the need is not out of this world, like it's something that you can easily achieve, like, come on, why not? So I get it. Men, let's talk about men and women. In terms of in this recognizing love languages, I know there's a general women are nurturers, the general perception of women are nurturers, and men, I don't know what the same men are, but is there a different expression for when it comes to gender? Do daddies express love differently than mommy? I've often heard daddies are the ones that have time to play with kids, while mommies are the ones that do acts of service. Yes, so there's this perception that daddies usually are the ones that play with the kids, spend quality time, and then mommies are the ones, because they are busy, taking care of us, they don't have time to spend quality time. Is that a general perception, or it doesn't even really matter?
Well, the thing about it is, I think it's also, remember that we don't live in, a vacuum. We do have societal norms, don't we? We have those norms, societal norms, where in a vast majority of families, the mother does the caring. Why? Because you've been caring for the child from the moment you realized, you were pregnant, and you gave birth to the child, you're feeding and all that. Which means you have a heightened level of anxiety around your child. You have a heightened level of responsibility, just virtue of the fact that you're the one who normally does it. So when dad comes in, there is a possibility that isn't there. His only job is, I'm going to provide for you all, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And so that innate, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten, my child has a temperature, they might not be experiencing that at that moment. So while you're trying to say, eat your food, you're trying to be firm with your child, eat your food, and dad comes and just say, hey, don't worry, she doesn't have to eat, throws the baby upside down and does this and does that. And you're thinking, what is wrong with you?
So I see your point, yeah.
Yeah, so that happens. Yeah. However, it's allowing both parents to play their roles. I think that's the benefit of there being the presence of both parents. That means we can all play our roles in different ways. Even in single parent households, you see that there are some parents who are like, I have to be both the good
mom
cop
and dad,
and the bad cop. So either way, as long as we're finding a way to meet that child's needs, and yes, dad might be the one who does the gift giving, a lot of it, because mom is already feeling like, I've done acts of service, I've done quality time, I've watched Peppa Pig, my eyes are across. But then dad then gets to do something else.
So it sounds to me like you're saying that in a two family, in a mom and dad setting, it's okay for them to balance out what they do, i.e., maybe if you're good with acts of service, as long as you can complement each other and the kids are getting a fair share, you don't have to be the one to expend all yourself to do all five, because you might not even have the capacity to do all five, to be honest. Like, you might have your own limitations, right? So it just then puts pressure on you. If, for example, you're a single parent and you now have to find a way to be everything, and that's a lot. That's a lot.
Well, it is, but remember that you don't have to be everything at every time.
Okay, you can be. Okay, you can be something
sometimes. And here's the thing: no child does well with a perfect parent. People think I have to be a perfect parent in order for me to have a healthy child. That cannot be further from the truth. A child needs parents who are a little bit imperfect, so that they know that they can be wrong and then be okay again.
Yes, okay, I see. Yeah.
Right. So, but the thing about parents is, even if you get it wrong, you should be able to step to your child and maybe almost admit you're wrong.
Yes.
That's rupture and repair. Okay, I ruptured it. How am I going to repair it? So that the child doesn't go away owning the problem.
One thing I just picked from what you said right now is, we don't have to be perfect for our kids. It's also not beneficial to be perfect for them, because they think they're in the perfect world.
Exactly.
So they need to see these imperfections, so they know that there's no perfect system. So we try. Like, we'll do our best, and so will you.
Yes, absolutely. And here's the thing: parents who are perfect or who appear perfect to their children do not give the child the ability to be flawed. Even if they don't mean it, but the child then grows up and feels, I cannot be flawed in any way. So even if I have a little zit on my face, there's something wrong with me, and all hell is going to break loose because I'm not perfect. A good parent is one that shows that I am flawed and you can be flawed, and we're just going to find a way to make things okay.
To make things work.
Because we're human beings. So even if you miss your child, and that's another thing, especially in childhood, one thing that we have is, if we can catch children before they become adults, whatever stage of childhood they are, then you've done a very, very good job. So even if you miss...
What age are you referring to when you say catch them before?
Yeah. Now, so let's look at the different stages. So if we're thinking about toddlers, then you start thinking about maybe the prepubescent kids. Then you start thinking about teenagers or adolescents before they get to... There are many different stages. And we can get things wrong at any of those stages. It doesn't then mean that because you got it wrong when they were 3 years old, means you can't fix it when they're 6 or when they're 12. Also, children's needs change. When they get to teenage years, it is healthy for a child to lose interest in you and be more interested in their peers. That is very healthy, right? So their needs will change.
Okay, so I see.
So, but it's trying to meet whatever need they have at in that time. Teenage years.
Yeah. Exactly. So they need space.
Exactly. They need space, but they need guidance. Because what we're doing is, people say, we're training children. We're not really training, they're not dogs, they're not animals. You're guiding them. You want them to have space in that path, just guiding them around. You want them to have that space. Not that they need to be exactly like this or exactly like that. Let them have freedom within, healthy parameters. Or if we think about love language for children, saying to a child, imagine you're trying to do love languages for your children, right? And you've got a 1-year-old. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. That child might not even understand what you're saying. Might not get you. Maybe what they need is the quality time. Your I love you might be in your facial expressions when you see them and your face lights up. They know that, I'm an important person to this chick or to this guy. to their parents. Now, as they grow older, when they start getting to the teenage years, when they're in school and people are brutal, maybe that's when they like to hear it the most. Wow, you're so pretty in that dress. Wow, do you know you're so smart? You're an amazing kid. I wish I had you as a friend when you were that young, when I was your age. Now, those are words of affirmation, but those are things that will really do well for teenagers, for example. So it's being aware of what your child needs at the different times. Quality time. At age 13, 14, it might be they need your time, but maybe not. We don't like our kids on the phone constantly or on Instagram constantly. But remember that their friends are the people they're supposed to be hanging out with the most. So quality time might not be that important to them at that age. It doesn't mean you should not start dumping quality time on them because you think, we need to sit down together.
And you have a point, because I know when kids are growing up and you tell them you're taking them on a trip, they're so excited. They're 8. They're like, when they start to get to 13 and 14, and they're like, we're going on the trip. Can't I go with my friend? And I'm like, really? So you're right. So there is a time and place for everything. Like one language at 4 is not the same language at 16. You just have to be aware as parents to know what do they need right now. Okay, so your love language is changing. Now I think right now you don't need quality time. That's not the time to force them to go on staycations with you.
Right.
I just want to be in my room on my Okay, I see. So basically you're saying let's be aware, let's be present and watch and listen to them. Okay. I think that works.
Yeah. It's not that, and the truth of the matter is, it's not that hard. It's hard only because we haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
A lot of us, especially in our culture that we grew up, we haven't experienced a lot of it. And so it seems like a new road. It seems so new to chart this path. But if you can just cast your mind back to when your baby was a baby and how natural it was to speak all those languages in sync at the same time. You're doing it
at the same time. Yeah.
And then when you then think about it, now at this age, when they're 13 and they're all bratty, or they're 16 and they're like, I want to go on holiday by myself, and you're like, no. Well, that means you still have the energy to do it. You just have to tweak it a little bit. Tweak what it is that they need and give them that, because they're not going to need it. Talking about gifts, and we're not talking about adults now, because by that time our deficits start to show. If you give a 16-year-old like a present, let's say it's just a little present and you've got heart or love from dad or love from mom, something written, a lot of people still have those gifts in adulthood. They still have them. Because at that time, they're able to see a physical representation of their parents' love at the time when they were the most troublesome, at the time when they were the most rebellious, when
I was rebellious. I don't remember carrying any gifts though.
Well, but that's the thing. But imagine if, let's say, your parents at that time gave you something. Imagine that, I don't know if you did this, but there's an age where kids don't really like their parents at all. They think they're right constantly. My parents are just old-fashioned and just trying to make my life miserable. Yeah. Right? Sometimes quality time, words of affirmation. If you say to them, I love that dress on you. In fact, they want to go change the dress. They're like, if my mom likes it, then it's not good. Whatever love language you give them. I'm just using an example that it could be that little gift, that little something that you think doesn't even matter at all. Something that just represents that despite the fact that you're a bit bratty at the moment, you're still the apple of my eye, And then they get to carry that around. But our parents miss that. Our parents might just think, at age 16, they don't need anything. I'm paying their school fees. I'm giving them pocket money. I'm doing all these things. They don't need anything. So it's just being aware, really.
Okay. This has been honestly fantastic. For me, every opportunity to learn something, whether it's from a parent, from an expert, like there's no perfect parent. I'm willing to get new knowledge and apply it to myself. And I'm hoping that a lot of parents find this useful as well. Whether they're struggling or not, there's still something to learn. Like there's still something that you didn't know about this that you probably pick up. So I'm so grateful to you, Sade, for lending your voice to this topic. Do you have any final words to parents in general or to kids? Maybe to kids. What would you like kids to know? Like kids that their parents just can't give them. Like, I've given my mom this sign, I've told her this, I've told her, but they just don't get it. My dad, I keep telling, what do you say to those kids that they're struggling to find a way to connect or to voice their language to their parents?
Yeah, I'd say give your folks a chance. Give them a chance. In other words, the fact that they've got it wrong this long doesn't mean they can't start to learn. Some of the things that we've learned, by the way, that you talked about our parents, the reason why they're acting the way they are now is because they're finally learning. They're seeing that thing hasn't paid off the way the world hasn't paid off. So for children, give your folks a chance to learn about you, to learn what your languages are, to learn what your needs are. And it's both parties giving each other a chance, really. And I think that's the thing. And like I will preface this is not, and I'll say this to parents, it'll be very, very hard for you to get this going if you're a parent that your kids are scared of.
Yeah.
So their survival instinct is already kicking in, never mind asking for love languages to be met. So first of all, before you even start worrying about love languages, start working on just the relationship, allowing your child to be okay in your presence.
Absolutely. So heal the wound first.
Yeah.
The way that is for them to talk to you, for them to share with you. Honestly, I guess that's the only way you can begin to see what they really need. But if they're too afraid to be around you, then they probably shut you out. They can't communicate anything. So I see your point there.
And they were like, my dad is never going to listen. My mom never listens to me. They don't care about my needs. When really, parents are doing everything for their children. A lot of children feel as though my parents don't care about my needs at all. So it's that communication. There's a communication breakdown. We don't understand any languages.
Okay. Thank you, Sade.
Very welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm going to thank you for an interesting time with us today. I want to say thank you especially to Sade. It's been wonderful. It's been a great time just listening and learning from you. To all our guests watching, ParentPulse is for you. We're just trying to bring you a platform that, just allows us to talk about things that bother us the most, about our children, about our relationships with our kids, whether it's learning, whether it's education, whether it's, mental health, whether it's anything at all that has to do with our kids. That's what we're here for. So thank you for your time. Hopefully we get to see you next month. If you have any questions, don't forget to drop it in the chat. We're happy to answer. Sade is also here as well. You can find her on Instagram and Facebook. Handle is Relaxed Into Self. She's happy to respond to you anytime as well. Again, my name is Banke Okibalogo. I'm your host of the ParentPulse and definitely the founder of Naijatutors Konnect. So go to our pages. We're there for you. We can answer any questions. We're just there for you. So see you next month on our next episode. Take care. Bye.